I don't think we have audio on you yet, Mike.
Can you hear me or not?
I can hear you now, yes. So, Kolon's late. I don't know what Losey's doing. We're recording already, so we can keep this in. We can get rid of it. That's Kolon chiming in. First of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I don't know. Have you watched any of these that we've done? Do you know what we're doing here?
No, I have not had a chance to see any of them.
Okay. Well, then shame on you. We're really cool, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But here's kind of the intro on all of this. Chris Kolon and I have been friends for years, and we've been saying for several years now, man, we should start a podcast. There's so many people in Michigan as part of the lacrosse community that have so many stories to tell that East doesn't know West, boys doesn't know girls, college might not know high school. We should just start talking to people and interviewing them and documenting it as a podcast. And we originally thought podcast, like him and I in the same room, couple of microphones, somebody would drive out, sit down with us, and we'd have a full podcast. Well, now that we're all quarantined and everybody and their brother is using Zoom for business, we said no more excuses. Let's start talking to and interviewing people around the state of Michigan in lacrosse. So our buddy John Losey, who's the third guy on the screen, John's a good friend of both of ours. John has a daughter that plays lacrosse that's going to Mercy next year. He's got a son that's a junior at Brother Rice. And anywhere that there can be a conversation or a broadcast on lacrosse in Michigan, John just happens to find himself into the conversation. He's broadcast for ESPNU and ESPN Plus and done Detroit Mercy games and all that stuff. So you got three old buddies that said, we're going to talk lacrosse. And of our first few guests, two of them named you by name and said, you have to talk to Mike Emery from Rockford. So the first was Jen Dunbar, and the second was Mackenzie Lawler. So I was emailing back and forth with
both
you.
Good friends.
Yep, and said, hey, both girls said that we should talk to you. I know nothing about the girls' game. I've never officiated, played, participated in girls lacrosse, and I've got two little girls that I'm raising. I've got a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old that are going to start playing. So I'm really curious to ask you a million questions about boys versus girls, East versus West, how Rockford's had their success, all that kind of stuff. So if you're willing, let's jump in and start this thing and just start picking your brain.
Sure, sounds good. And I actually, at the beginning, would do a great shout out to Jen, because when we were brand new as a program and really trying to get off the ground, she really helped us and embraced us. And at that time in the state, and that was now 13 years ago, that's really where the center of the game was in the girls, was on the east side of the state. And as we were helped by her and some others and continued to grow our program, it really shifted the balance of power over the last decade to the west side, and we've seen tremendous growth in the game on the west side of the state.
Yeah. One of the things that she said was she would love to sit down and do kind of a roundtable with the fact that a lot of the coaches on the east side are still female in the women's game, but a lot of the coaches on the west side are male in the women's game, and just kind of see the differences of philosophies. And we'll get to that. So why don't we, I've given you an intro. Do you know Coach Kolon from UDM or know of him?
Know of him.
Okay. So Chris, say hi.
Not much to know.
Same here.
What you see is what you get with Coach Kolon.
Yeah. So Losey really has been driving the conversation for a lot of stuff on lacrosse in the area. Kolon is the D1 coach that knows everyone in recruiting. I'm a men's NCAA and ILOA college official and a high school official, and I'm the new president of the US Lacrosse Michigan chapter. So that's kind of how the three of us came together to say, let's do this. Tell everybody who you are. If you have a day job, what is it? Your current role, whether it's with a school, a travel team, a college, all that kind of stuff. Introduce yourself to the world.
Well, I started out in the game because of my daughter, who went on to play in college and coach with me for a time period. That's really what got me started, along with the rest of my staff. Mark Newman, and Mark has been on staff with me for 13 years, and Brent Duell for 8 years. And those guys are really integral to what we do, but we're now at the point where we've brought back former players really to help coach, because we're always trying to gain knowledge. I mean, we were a bunch of dads 15 years ago at the middle school level when we were really getting things together and trying to understand lacrosse, because we're brand new to Michigan. And we had played everything as kids. Luckily, Mark had come from Long Island and Massapequa, and he's got 5 daughters. So he's gravitated toward the girls' game, and all his kids have come through our program. So we kind of got started there, but as we really grew, Jen really helped us, and we started to go to conventions and understand the game. And now we've got a pretty strong network across the country. We're pretty tight with UNC coaching staff, and they come and do a clinic every year at Rockford, and Mac Lawler and Mac and my daughter played travel together years ago. So we've stayed tight with the Lawlers over time and grew it from the ground up. And it's really become the family business, I guess, or the community business, if you want to call that, though I do have a day job. It gave me the luxury to devote the time to the game and really help grow the game in West Michigan. But the Rockford program is definitely not me. It's 50 different people, and I've had the pleasure of being able to be the leader of it. But without all these other folks, we wouldn't be anything. And so we've had a lot of great parents, a lot of great kids come through that school. And today we were just on the phone. We did a Zoom call with my team today because we haven't been able to be together. So we're trying to find ways to stay together now during this, because really our number one goal every year isn't about winning. Our number one goal is to make memories for these kids. It's all about the kids. And so in doing that, the winning ends up being a byproduct because of the culture that we try to create. And we're still trying to do that for these kids. My assistant coaches have been doing little video chats, and we did a charades thing on our website the other day with the kids. And today we did the Zoom call. We've got workout ice cream challenges going on. We've got, wall ball ice cream challenges happening. We got all kinds of stuff. And I made a promise to my seniors today that we would make some memories for them yet this year. I don't know what those will be, because looking at an announcement probably coming tomorrow from the MHSAA that we aren't going to have a season, although that's not official yet, but that handwriting's kind of on the wall. So those are all the things that we're doing right now. That's been a little bit of a challenge for us, but and making sure some of these kids that really wanted or had opportunities to go on to school that haven't picked school yet, that's going to be a little difficult for them with not having their high school season and maybe not having a summer season. So
yeah, it's been a hot topic of conversation for us, because we've been doing these for what, guys, 2-3 weeks now, and when we started doing this was right when the Ivy League canceled their season. And then it was, okay, well, now colleges are starting to cancel theirs. But, it was still in flux. It was still evolving. We were, I had high school games still in Arbiter. I had college games still in ZebraWeb that hadn't been canceled yet. And we were debating, like, well, how many games do we need to how many days of practice do we need? And then how many games a week can we have? And how many games before playoffs for the boys? And it just seems like every time we have this conversation, the goalposts move a little bit more, in the wrong direction. Are the girls really doing this from a camaraderie thing? Or are they having group texts? And I know you said you had the Zoom call today, and you've been doing some fun stuff with them. But how are they dealing? Are the girls doing okay?
Yeah, they're doing okay. I mean, they're a great group of kids, and they're connected, and that was really the part of the call today, because we have quite a culture of young kids growing up through our system, and the older kids are the ones that then teach the younger ones to connect and replicate that culture. And so we've had some hiccups in that just based on what's going on. But today, even you saw the leadership even on the call. One of my seniors has had everybody on the call, and we had 25 kids on the call and a couple coaches, or 22 kids and a couple coaches, and going around and what's the most fun thing they've done in the last 3 weeks since we've been able to be together. And I asked them today if they wanted to do some more of that kind of thing, and they said sure. And I basically kicked the call off, and then they were just talking and chatting and learning things that they didn't know about each other. And, one of the kids started to play guitar during this stuff, and, others are doing some other fun stuff. And so it was just a way for us to see everybody's face, and we miss each other. I mean, that's the happiest day for all of us. And we tell them that when they hit the practice field, that nothing else that happened that day matters. We can now have a couple hours of fun and be together and make some memories and do some fun stuff. So that's the thing that's probably, if that announcement that I expect happens, is going to hurt me the most, is I'm going to miss that time with these seniors.
Yeah.
And they're going to go on and play, and a number of them are going on. I've got one's going to K College, and one's going out to Colorado to play for UC Boulder, and I got a couple other kids that have made commitments, but I want to get out and watch them play. And I just, right before all this stuff happened and our season happened, I was down in North Carolina because we have one of Mark Newman's daughters, Brooklyn, starts for North Carolina, and Izzy Holmes is getting a lot of playing time as a freshman at Louisville, so went down and watched those two teams play. And just had a blast, and got to see the girls afterward, and just see they're just thrilled the fact that we still come out and support and do that. So it's not just about our kids when they're in the school. We care about these kids, and we now have a couple of babies that are born that we're sending gear out to, because some of my former players now have gotten married and now having kids, and it's nice to see what they're doing, because one of them's coaching down in Florida. They're coaching different places. They're involved in the game. Megan Datamo, who played for me and played at Grand Valley, is now running MSA's program in West Michigan. And so we've had really, when we look back on it, we've had through our program quite an impact on the sport in Michigan. So, but it all started with us not knowing what the heck we were doing, and having people like Jen and others befriend us and help us grow the game. So, shout outs to her.
So you didn't play, Coach, right? I mean, so
no,
you were just
played everything. I mean, the
same way.
when you think about it, the girls' game, the offenses, the defensive footwork,
Basketball,
all of it is basketball. So it's all the triangles, it's the movement in space, it's all of that. It's just in a bigger space. So you understand that, and so we recruit off the basketball field all the time too, and turn those kids into defenders because before they have the sticks, they have the feet.
Yeah.
And we spend a ton of time on footwork.
Yep.
And that's probably something that we do more than any other team in the state of Michigan does from a girls standpoint, maybe even a guy standpoint, is spending time on footwork. I mean, we're doing ladders every single day. We have an outside coach that we bring in, and we do speed and agility, change of direction, acceleration, all kinds of stuff like that. Plus, we're worried about injuries for these girls too, because girls are much more susceptible to that. So when people play us, we're known as people can't run with us, and we run them out of the field an awful lot of the time, and we play real high pressure game and the redefend, and that's just our style. And so we need to have that speed, and we need to have that change of direction, and we need to have that attitude really for our game to work. So, because our overall focus is if they don't have the ball, they can't score. So
yeah, that's good. One of the things you talked about, that camaraderie with your school. I've become good friends with Mike DeWitt up there.
Okay, sure.
So, so I actually, one of the other things I do besides the broadcasting piece, I set the scheduling for Brother Rice for the boys lacrosse program too. So Mike and I got to know each other that way, and he had mentioned to me that, one of the unique things you do is you have a retreat
Yes.
to kind of kick off the season every year where you bring the girls together and the moms. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
What we do, because, and again, we've had some assistants on the staff that have been females, but we bring the senior moms with us every year. And the senior moms look forward to that. And without getting into the real meat of what we do there, we go away for an overnight and spend a day. The kids don't get a whole lot of sleep. They're doing a lot of team building exercises, and that's for the coaches and I and the moms to keep their mouths shut and see how the girls interact and where the leadership comes from and how they learn to communicate as a group. And we learn a lot of lessons through that day as to how to approach those kids throughout the season, because every single team is different based on their leadership, based on the new kids coming in, the kids that have left. So the mix and the dynamics are different every year, but that helps us really determine how that should work and what should happen with that. And we have them pledge some things to us with some of their goals and some other things, and we do a ton of fun. They're always, they tear up my room that day and, do a few other things. And we used to do a talent show, and that's turned into a lip sync battle. So we do that, and the moms are involved in that, and we have trophies for that. So we make a lot of memories there. We do some craft stuff, and now the director where we go at Camp Manitoulin is a former player of ours too. She runs the camp now.
That's
so
cool.
She gets it. So that's helped us an awful lot too. But it's amazing to watch these young ladies really come together and bond together. And at our school, we had a change in soccer coaches this year, and I think this is relevant because the men's soccer coach came over to coach the girls, and he spent some time with me because he wanted to know about, how do you coach girls?
Right.
And he heard a lot of stuff, and a lot of what he had said to me was a bunch of garbage, which he had kind of understood that stuff he had heard from other coaches out there in the world, but obviously they aren't having some of that success. One of the things is with the girls is they need to know the why. And they also need to have some time every day where they're going to chirp and chatter and socialize, and they're going to get together, and they're going to create that sense of community around themselves and the team. And we had to learn that because that happens during warm-ups. So when you see our warm-ups are loud, and we're walking through and we're asking the kids every day, hey, what went on today? How was school? What happened on your test? What'd you do fun today? If they had a bad day, hey, you know what, let's have some fun at practice and just focus and just listen to them, but have them all doing that same thing and really communicating. And then after that, they're ready to go to work.
Right.
But you don't necessarily see that with a guys team, so to speak.
No.
So if there's a difference between the two, that it's that chance for them to bond and communicate, and they need to understand the why behind it.
Yeah.
And I've never been a yeller anyway. You got to get somebody's attention once in a while, but you really have to explain why and take them aside and say, okay, well, how'd that work? And what if you tried this the next time? And we like to give our captains tons of freedom on the field too. We don't call a lot of set plays. If we're calling a set play or I'm screaming to play, it's because they're not doing what they should be doing out there. I shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
They understand they've got strong lax IQs. They're playing summer ball. They've grown up in our system and what we expect. They've come up through Mark's system on the JV, and he focuses all on skills. So they understand, spacing and movement and what to do when you don't have the ball, and that understanding that, there's only one kid putting the ball in the net. So 11 other kids have got to do something right for that to happen.
Right.
And they really buy into that, and it's all those things that we do. But it all starts with that retreat. And unfortunately, we were a couple days away from.
I was going to ask.
We got shut down this year, so we didn't get the chance to do that. And when our seniors give their memory every year, one of their favorite lacrosse memories, it's usually of that overnight.
Yeah.
in that time. And that's a time when we're building memories. They'll remember that forever. And in fact, I sent some videos out, my seniors, when they were freshmen. They all wanted to see their talent show video from when they were freshmen. And it was hilarious watching it again today. And we sent it out, and it went out over our Instagram after our Zoom meeting today, so that they could see that. So they get to see each other in different ways. It's amazing how powerful that is. And we started it because one year we had a little bit of an issue culturally in the program. And so we did something mid-year. And at the end of that, I said, well, we're never going to go through this again. Yeah. So we're going to set the stage. And so we've got a pretty good formula to be able to do that and give them the experience we want them to have.
Yeah, that emotional piece, on the girls' side, where that camaraderie, that emotional piece, being able to talk and communicate, like you said, whereas, Chris Kolon can speak to the college, the boys, the boys game, where that's not really there, is it, Coach Kolon?
No, it's completely there.
Oh, is it?
We do a retreat. We do everything he's saying.
Well, more so the emotional piece of everyone opening up and wanting to talk to each other, where your guys are not as probably talkative, maybe.
Our guys, we do a pretty good job of that. I think it's pretty important at the highest level of competition to really know yourself and know the people around you. So I think what Coach is saying, I was going to wait until the end to say this, but I think every boys coach, girls coach, I don't care what sport, everything that he just said should be done in high school. I don't care. I think it's universal. I don't think it's a difference between boys and girls. I think it's high level, next level stuff that's going on. We try to do as much as we can of that at college, because you're competing at such a high level that knowing the why, especially with kids that are, they've been the high performer in their high school. We get a lot of outlying people, but that knowing the why is such an important piece. So Coach, congrats, great work. I'm just going to listen.
we get a lot of kids too at the high school level that are there. We've never cut anybody in 13 years. So we've never made a cut, and our goal would be to never make a cut. So we'll find a place for those kids, and they have a role on the team. And that's important. That's another thing is understanding your role. And we preach that at our overnight and throughout the year. What is your role? And somebody's role is to be the scorer, is to be the person that I want to have the ball when the game is tied and there's 10 or 12 seconds left, and we practice that. I mean, we set a timer and do a countdown, 10 seconds to score, 12 seconds to score, and that was brought to me by a former player, and something that they came from their college experience. So, that's and we get a lot of stuff like that. I mean, I steal stuff from Mac. I steal stuff from. We're pretty good thieves, I guess. We steal a lot of stuff from different places. In that, but know your role is so critical. And for some people, their role maybe isn't a game role. In many cases, it's a practice role to bring their best every day to make somebody else better, so that they're ready when they face that game situation, or to spot something on the sidelines. We have all the kids being loud, making calls, having their eyes open, spotting things that maybe I or another coach didn't see. So, and that's going to have an impact. So I tell them all year long, every one of you will have an impact in a victory, and you will make a difference in a victory. That maybe it didn't happen on the field during that game, but it happened during practice and prep for that game. It happened because you listened to a teammate during the day who was having a bad day and they needed an ear. Whatever it is. So everybody has a role. And I think that's critically important too, because sometimes in the classroom, I don't think they learn that lesson, because everybody's really an individual. Even if they put them on a team project, everybody's getting an individual grade. And so it's a really different deal to know your role. And in life, there's going to be a whole lot of roles. Some people are supporting casts, some people are not. So. Right. Do what you do, but do your best and get better at it every day.
That's right.
Coach, if you had to pick a staff member that would probably be the most critical hinge in your whole system, who do you think that is?
I couldn't separate the two, and let me tell you why. First of all, Mark's been with me from the beginning, and he's our JV coach.
Okay.
And Mark's entire focus is on skill building. So Mark will spend one-on-one time developing skills. We get a lot of brand new kids to the sport. We have a couple of transfer athletes, meaning they're transferring from another sport within our school. And they're great athletes, but they need some time with the stick. He's tireless in getting groups of 4 girls up around a net in his backyard, anywhere, anytime. He's a retired sheriff's captain and still works, part-time back there, but he's got a ton of time to devote to the game. He's also starting a field hockey program, so our kids have something to do in the fall. So he's indispensable in that way because of the skill and the drill and what he does at the JV level. And that we really learned by watching our high school basketball program years ago with Steve Marley, and he had Ryan DeKuyper, and Ryan DeKuyper really fulfilled that role. And Mark and I work really, really well together. Our kids were college roommates and our oldest daughters. And so that just fits. And Brent Duell, whose daughter plays at Davenport, Brent's been with us for 8 years now, and he brings a whole different set of skills to the table. One of the things is he's a teacher, so he's in the building every day, and the kids are hanging out in his room. He gets the pulse of the kids and really understands the relationship and the culture and all of that stuff. And so we couldn't exist. I mean, if one of them was gone, we would have a drop off. So I couldn't pick one or the other. But what each of them do is so integral to our success.
Yeah. I don't know much, but I've always, when I'm done with college, I want to become a JV coach because I think JV coaches are your most critical coaches on any staff. And having somebody in the building is absolute gold. So everything you're saying, I don't know much about how high school teams work, but I'll tell you, everything you're saying sounds right to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, Mike, I'm just sitting back and kind of taking this all in because I've been out of coaching for a number of years on the official side of this. And let's be honest, even my best coaching wasn't nearly at the level or the accomplishments that you have had. But to hear you as now the 7-time state champion, is it 7 in a row? Did I count that right?
7 in a row, but 8 total.
Okay.
There's a few of them hanging on the wall behind me here.
Well, you haven't been watching all the other episodes, but a running theme has been the evolution of the Lax Losi wall behind him of helmets and jerseys and T-shirts. And Kolon is living in his closet. Yeah. He finally put up this rug or something he got from Thailand to cover up his underwear and his socks because he's literally in his bedroom closet. And I'm just too lazy to do anything with all the crap behind me. But we did notice a couple of the things back there. I did want to compliment you that you and Losi are neck and neck now for the best wall behind you for filming. But
I have the Iserman too, but that's on a different wall. And actually, Steve was quite involved years and years ago because his daughters were playing at Sacred Heart.
Right.
And he was involved with the Positive Coaching Alliance, and that's where I got to meet him. And that was back in 2009, 2010, back in that time window when he was involved there. And he made quite an impression on these young girls. So I appreciate the Iserman hanging there. He may have been a hockey player, but he's a lax dad. So.
Oh yeah. Him and Chris Draper. When I was involved in the Michigan Warrior program down here on the boys' side, Chris Draper's boys played in there around that time frame too, as well. Just great guys.
Yeah. And Chelios's kids at Cranbrook. And
we seen him around Ultimate Soccer arenas over the years as his daughters were up there playing and we had games and stuff up there. So yeah, as a kid that grew up in the Iserman era, big fan of his that he's been so supportive of the girls' game. But I want to get back to my question where, you know, you're not the traditional powerhouse dynasty coach that we've seen in Michigan. It's normally been guys like, you know, I'll go back to Rob Ambrose, who played the game and then played the game at a high level in college and then came back and coached the game. As a young man, left, came back to Brother Rice years later, and then just rolled as a dynasty. Even what we've seen at the other levels, a lot of times these coaches have played, gone off and taken their talents to college, started somewhere else. You're very non-traditional, and hearing you talk about the things that got you to where you are, you're not talking about travel clubs. You're not talking about feeder programs. You're not talking about wall ball. You're not talking about the things that we beat into each other's heads.
Well,
about.
but those are all a given, though. Those are all there.
All given.
Okay.
And Mark's wife, Sarah, really for the last decade has run our youth program. And now it's through the community ed in Rockford as we try to grow and expand it. But having those kids, I mean, we had 20-some freshmen this year join our program. And next year looks to be a pretty big number as well. So that kind of thing is important. And we try to send the kids back down there to play. Frankly, a lot of our graduates that are in the area are coaching at that level as well, because they know exactly what we're looking for. And then we've got, we want the kids playing travel. Unfortunately, and I hope Megan Datema helps resurrect that. We haven't had a lot of great travel options the last 3 or 4 years in West Michigan. We did for a while when we had Mitten and Rapid, and then we had some, the stuff on the lakeshore, and we had some things that were all really kind of coming together, and that kind of fell apart. And Mac's got her program, and we send a lot of kids to Mac, and we have a lot of our graduates coaching in her travel program, and like I said, with MSA and Megan Datema. But frankly, we send a lot of our better kids out of state to play for that. I mean, Brooklyn Newman played at Coppermine out of Maryland, and her little sister's playing for Summit. We have several kids playing for Summit, which is really the coaches are out of Colorado. They practice in Chicago, but the rank and file kids aren't going to be able to do that. That's for your elite player who's going to go and do that kind of thing. And now Michigan kids are being recognized in that arena. I mean, you look at the U19 gold medal team had 2 Michigan kids, had Brooklyn Newman and Isabel Skane, and Izzy's was having a great sophomore campaign, and so was Brooklyn. And so, that's not the normal hotbed, but there's 2 of the better sophomores in women's Division I lacrosse, and they're Michigan kids. So
yeah.
I think that bodes well, and I think you're going to see even more of that because University of Michigan has a great women's coaching staff now.
Yeah.
And we have some ties there too as well through our North Carolina connections, and they were real close on a couple of our kids, and they ended up making decisions based on schools and other things to go somewhere else. But and we got Maggie Kane from Catholic Central that's playing there and starting. So we're starting to see more and more and more of our kids getting scouted when they're playing summer ball, and in some of the key games, coaches coming out to now. So Michigan women's lacrosse is beginning to get a name, but we need more coaches desperately. We need more referees desperately. We need to grow that, and that's really we've helped try to grow some new programs. We had Jenison kids playing with us in our our winter thing and coming to some of our conditioning and some of that stuff for a couple of years before they launched. And we'll help anybody do that because that's just that payback. Jen was there for us, and she would answer any question we had. And now we want to be able to do that same thing to help them grow and develop, because the more, and frankly, it's the only, I think in Michigan, the only high school sport that's growing in numbers. So, and we want to make sure that that continues to happen.
Two quick things on that, Coach. Number one, in terms of sending your players out of state, for the travel team, what age do you typically start sending them out? That's the first question. And the second one is, how did the North Carolina connection come about?
It really came about with Mark and his daughter being recruited, and she was playing for Coppermine, which was coached by the Hopkins coaches. And they really had an eye on her, and they spotted her as a rising freshman. And she was, at the time when you could make that early commitment, made that early commitment. And so as she went there, and even before she was there, we worked on getting a satellite camp. It's when satellite camp started to kind of be the thing.
Yep.
And when Harbaugh was doing them everywhere, well, we created that relationship with North Carolina to come in, and they saw some really great kids, and they just, we had the best turnout for a first time satellite camp at our Michigan camp for them. So and frankly, I still think we could be better and better as that grows. And then I actually spent some time, a little bit of time with Kara Cannizzaro, who was a great player at North Carolina. And she's really a director of development, runs camp. She does a bunch of other things now on campus. She was in Colorado for a while at a high school because her brothers played out there. But she's become a good friend of the program. I mean, we can really call her a friend. And not only of the Newman family, but of the Emery family. And, she's Facebook friends with my youngest daughter. And when I saw her at North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, she comes running up to me and goes, "You got a new puppy." I mean, she goes, "I'm stalking you guys."
That's cool.
So it's relationships at that level. And so we know that we can pick up, but just being a sponge. I mean, Mark and I were there watching the warm-ups that day, and he's there all the time watching games, but we already picked up things, watch how they're doing this drill, watch how they're doing this warm-up, why are they doing this, why are they doing that, and and then add that to our to what we're doing. So we've really become students, and we watch. Thankfully, with all the streaming today, I've probably watched 30 women's Division I, Division II lacrosse games this year before the season went down. One, we've got kids playing in a lot of places. But two, you want to watch the matchups. You want to watch the coaching styles. You want to watch, how they're handling substitutions with the free movement, all the different things that they're doing and the nuances, so that we can try to figure out some things that we might be able to do at our level that, might be a little bit different than what somebody else is doing.
Yeah. Okay. And then how old, that's that first question in terms of sending your girls out of state from a travel standpoint,
well, that's going to depend on the parents, but I really think that it becomes a value when they get to that 8th grade, 9th grade, that kind of point, because then you're gonna start to separate who are the really highly skilled kids at that point in time that are committed to it. But I still really believe the kids need to be multi-sport athletes, and when they are only specializing in one, it's much more risk of injury. And there's a lot of coaches that would disagree with me, but we've always supported the kids doing other sports. We support their choir and everything else that they're doing. I mean, these are busy kids if they're at a high level, and they've got to keep all of that stuff going. I mean, we had a young lady this year who was trying to do in the same season varsity track and varsity lacrosse, and that was one where it was going to be a little bit tough in that. And we just said, "Hey, we'll support you, but I'm not sure how you're going to be able to do it. Tell me what your plan is." Yeah. And ultimately, she decided to play lacrosse.
Coach, how much would you like to switch the soccer and lacrosse seasons?
Oh,
so they're
don't get me started. Think of all the athletes, and frankly, North Carolina comes to mind. They've got a starter right now who also is a starter on the soccer team, and she's a two-sport athlete at North Carolina, and they've had several soccer lacrosse combos there, and it just makes all the sense in the world. But I just don't think we're going to see that out of our MHSAA anytime soon. With all the time and all the money and all, let's not drag that whole mess out of the out from under the, it's not dead, but out from under the doormat, because that would be one change that I think would really impact. It would increase soccer numbers, and it would increase lacrosse numbers dramatically.
I agree, and that's the only reason I always try to talk about it with anybody in girls sports in Michigan. I think, they do an okay job with football, soccer, and lacrosse and baseball. It's the right thing to do for kids. I know we don't want to get into the weeds about it, but I do like to bring it up whenever I talk to somebody that's important in high school lacrosse or high school soccer, because it needs to be looked at.
Well,
we would let me end that this way. We would welcome that.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it was just a few years ago that we were all up in arms that they were going to flip volleyball and basketball, and everyone was up in arms about gym time, and there won't be enough officials, and kids are going to quit. And I haven't looked at participation numbers on women's volleyball and women's basketball in high school. I don't think either one of them really took a hit in that, but I just remember everybody was up in arms, and there was lawsuits, and how dare the families that sued. I remember reading all the stuff in the paper, but I wasn't involved in either of those sports, so I just kind of stuck to lacrosse and let them fight over it. So I did want to kind of roll back to some US Lacrosse things that you had mentioned, and I do this for selfish reasons. As the president of the organization, I'm really focused on increasing membership. I'm really focused on making sure that people understand the value of what their membership does. We had a guy on last week named Pat Witt, who's the head varsity boys coach at Ovid LC St. John's United up northeast of Lansing. And just his story about the First Stick team program grant that he was able to get for helmets for a year, for never having been involved in the sport and the coaches education programs, and really Chris and John and I saying, man, we've been writing these checks for all these years. We get the magazine, we get, as an official, I get education coaching there, but you never realize the impact that the sport can have on a kid's life and how much of an impact US Lacrosse can have on providing those opportunities. So I want to make sure people understand it's not just about First Stick programs, grants, diversity, inclusion, that kind of stuff. You specifically said that when you started the program in Rockford that other people, like US Lacrosse member Jen Dunbar, was an ally in reaching out and helped you, but that you also went to several conventions. Have you gone through and done anything, and if the answer is no, just say no, I'm not going to be offended by it, but have you made a point to make sure people through your programs have been getting level 1, 2, and 3 coaches development programs certified? Have you been pushing them to go to conventions? Where does US Lacrosse fall in your development?
We do. Yeah, we're all at least level 1, some level 2, level 3 through that. Really, we're going to learn more by going and having these relationships with these college coaches and going and sitting in on a practice and observing, and then having some dialogue afterward. Why are we doing this? Why are you doing this strategy? What are you attempting to do here? How is this working? Those kinds of things. And, that was one of the studies that we were doing this year, was around free movement, because those rules always come to the college level before they come to our level. And so with last year we had self-start, but that really wasn't an impact, because between the referees and the kids, and I think the kids had a better handle on it than some of the referees did, and it was still not the greatest. But now with free movement, we had a number of strategies that we were going to implement, because it makes the game even faster. And so it was going to change the way that we had to substitute. It was going to change the way that we would strategize in certain situations, maybe trying to load up heavy defensively in certain situations. Also, what we were going to do in free position shots, what we were going to do coming off a missed shot, and how we were going to position, how the girls need to be moving. And we were already working on some of that stuff in the first week. And, some of the kids that had played that way in the summer and that were fairly astute would say, hey, coach, in summer or in winter ball, the only person that was moving was me. And so having that awareness and so, those are the things that we're at with our level now. So I don't see us necessarily getting those from a particular US Lacrosse meeting, but we're getting that stuff from US Lacrosse members.
Gotcha.
And so but we've had the time to build those relationships and study that stuff. Brent was dialoguing with the U-Indy coach because of a play and they have Grace Gunnison, who's a senior, is one of our kids. And they use her pretty much the way that we used to. She's a real tall kid. But they had a couple plays specific off of free positions and off of off the starts, off a missed shot. So we reached out, hey, how are you doing this? How's that working? And right away through huddle, he said, hey, there's a game depository. And so he's like, hey, let me send you the film. So we had another coach, forward the film to us that we had already had an account with. And we got some college film, and we're able to look at that and study that stuff and work through that. So they're great ambassadors for the game. All they want is for us to get better at what we're doing, because then the kids they recruit are going to be more skilled.
Yeah. This might be a loaded, baited question, and because I don't know the answer, I'm hesitant to ask it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And if you just say, nah, I'm not going to answer that one, that's fine. On the men's game, the Michigan High School Lacrosse Coaches Association, the Mishloa Michigan Lacrosse Officials Association, the Capital City lacrosse coaches or lacrosse officials, the West Michigan lacrosse officials, we all get along pretty darn well. And there's not a lot of drama between the coaches, the officials, or the different groups. And part of that is a lot of us came up and we're the old guard of the game, and we've been around forever. Talking with some of our other guests, there's been comments about, I wish we had more communication with the Coaches Association, or I wish that the officials and the coaches, got it. Is there anything that you think US Lacrosse needs to do to get involved more in the leadership, associations, committees, levels of the women's game? Or am I poking around a hornet's nest I don't want to get around? Or is it fine and I'm out of line?
Some of that's probably an offline question.
Okay, and that's fair.
Or an offline answer to give you some direction there. But I would tell you all groups want to grow the game, and the MHSAA wants to grow the game.
Yeah.
So with that being said, there's some things that need to be done to grow the game, and let's kind of leave it at that. But I would be more than happy to engage with you offline with some thoughts that I think would make a difference. And
perfect.
And frankly, I think when you first came in, you and I might have had a couple of little bits of dialogue back then too. So.
Yeah. And so this goes back a couple years. We did a town hall in 2017 when I first got involved in the board, and we had a lot of people give some insight and feedback. And what we really wanted to do, what we want to do 2020 going forward, the best run nonprofits are not run and all the work done at the board level. They have solid, strong committees that have very specific tasks and accomplishments to do. Those committees make a report to the board. If the board needs to step in, if the board needs to give direction, the board needs to recruit more, fine. But smaller nonprofits, especially like the US Lacrosse chapters all over the country, the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer are the guys that are trying to put on the coaches' education development programs, schedule the 7-on-7s, vote on the Hall of Fame, read all the scholarship. There's just too much to do for those 5 to 10 people. Where my vision is, if there's 10 committees and 3 to 5 people in each one of those committees. And those committee people only have to do 3 to 6 hours of work a year, couple of conference calls here, a couple of sessions there. Well, now we get feedback from boys, girls, men's, women's, travel, high school, youth, college, NCAA, NAIA, MCLA. You know, if we can get everybody involved that is paying their membership dues every year, a representative from their community, a representative from their school association, whatever, and a voice at the table to grow the game and have their thoughts heard. That's what I really want to try to start having these conversations to review. These guys will probably remember I said the same question to Jen Dunbar, not the same question. I basically said to Jen Dunbar and Tony Quinn and Mackenzie and some of the other people, what does US Lacrosse Michigan need to do better, and which committee do you want to join to help with that? Totally putting them on the spot. I think that this is going to start a conversation because, as I said to Jen, who do I need to talk to? And she said, oh, you got to talk to Mike Emery. And I said, Mackenzie, who do I need to talk to? Oh, you got to talk to Mike Emery. Same question to you, Mike.
Yeah.
Who do we need to talk to in this podcast? Maybe you and I having an offline conversation about how some of our board members can help get involved and try to bring some more people, some committees in. And again, I say this as I'm a volunteer leader of an organization. I'm not going to go into the MHSA and tell Tom Rashid and Mark Ewell what to do. I'm not going to go into the Coaches Association and say, do you know who that's not the role. The role is to grow the game. The role is to connect the dots and help with the resources that may or may not be available that people don't understand. But I definitely want to – I need more Mark Emerys and Jen Dunbars and Mackenzie Lawlers at the table because I think the 8 state championships carry a lot of weight. I was going to tease you and say, is it true that people refer to Rob Ambrose as the Mike Emery of the men's game? You're starting to really carry some of that mystique. Yeah. And I definitely want some input from guys like you on who else needs to be involved in this stuff. So politics, committees, everything else aside, just for the sake of this podcast, who do you think we should talk to that would have some good stories and some good insights? Men's, women's, college, high school, travel, anywhere.
Chris, that was the longest question ever.
Yeah, that was.
I didn't think a question was coming. I got to be honest. I'm looking at the clock, and it's just going. And
yeah, was it? I'm not sure there was one.
I haven't said a lot this episode. I was bottled up, all right?
Well, I think that's a good start, and I think what's happened in the past, let me back up, is the people that have been involved at US Lacrosse on the women's side of the game were not top-level people. So they were not the leaders in the sport, and so we didn't get what we were looking for there. If you're looking at the high school level, actually, Mac's predecessor, I understand, is now coaching at Cranbrook, Alicia Groveston. Yep. And so Alicia's a good friend. My daughter played for her, and she's a great lady, and I believe that she would be a great voice. She was very involved and was president of the Coaches Association when she was a college coach. So obviously there's someone that would be very valuable. I think Rich Axtell from East Grand Rapids. Although I'm not sure how much longer Rich is going to coach, but Rich still might want to be involved in the game, and he's a great voice and has a tremendous program. So somebody like that would be critically important. Joe Kukuru at Forest Hills has had a tremendous heart in the game, and his kids have come through, and his daughter is working at MSA with Megan. Joe's now still coaching at Forest Hills, even though they've split. He's an administrator in the school system, so that's a benefit. Although I tease him, he lives in Rockford, so I tell him we love his Rockford taxes. Whenever they visit us, I show them the stadium that he built. So, that's just to name a few, and I know Mark and I have had those discussions, Mark Newman and Brent, those guys would be involved at something at some level to be able to do this right. I know Mark and I have talked about one of the things we would love to do and love to see is to see lacrosse in the inner city of Grand Rapids, especially on the girls' side because it's not there, and do something there to be able to get the game going and kids interested in just some clinics and just some things like that, and just to introduce the game. I mean, and that's so there's a lot of different roles there, but I really think that being an ambassador for the game and trying to grow the game and get more kids, it's the greatest game there is for kids. I mean, it's amazing.
So I want to follow up on one specific point you had in there about the getting a program in Grand Rapids City. We were supposed to have Summer Aldridge on, who's the head coach at Cass Tech, and scheduling mix up with everything. She's not going to be on for another week or so. But between a guy like Pat Witt from Obed Elsie, who did get a first stick team grant for helmets, goals, gear, everything on the men's side. He's gone through the process and filled it out. Summer's started a program now, and I'm working closely with Bryce Woodson, who's our regional rep for the Midwest. Grant requests no longer come to the Michigan chapter. We don't have the funds or control of the money anymore. All those requests go to US Lacrosse and our regional rep, and Bryce and I have already had the conversation. I'll pick on our own guys. If you get a request from Cass Tech and you need input on what's going on and what's there, call us and we will tell you stuff like that is a green light. We should help out with that. If you get a grant request from Brother Rice High School, no, they've had a program for 30 years. They've got resources. They have to it like that. We are still here as the Michigan chapter leadership to try to help recruit people to fill out those grant requests, help them submit the grant requests, and then advocate on their behalf with US Lacrosse to get the funds there. So if you find somebody with that vision that is willing to work on that vision with you, I want to help be the conduit between US Lacrosse, the Michigan chapter, and US Lacrosse Michigan members that might be somebody that can help fulfill some of that stuff. Because, like I said, I want to get the committees built up, but we need more coaches development programs here. And if I can find somebody like a Mike Emery that as you were joking about, you like the facilities, like the stadium, good. I can get the guys up here to run it if you can help me find the facilities. I can get the people up here to do an officials education or something. We need the local communities to step up and say, yeah, bring it here. I can get you 10 coaches in a gym on a Saturday morning. That's what we're really looking for support on some of this stuff.
Well, and our challenge, I mean, Jen Levy and her staff, when they come and do our satellite, one of the things that we promote every year is coaches come out. And they're taking you through basic skill development and all of that stuff. And we sit there like sponges and eat that stuff up every year. But very seldom do we see coaches from another program, even though we've encouraged them to be there. We had some Portage coaches come and some from another program, and they hung out with us, ask us a lot of questions as well as learn. But that's the kind of thing that when it's open, and that's a challenge, is even to do it, but to get them there.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that we're going to really make an effort for over the next few years. I have 3 guys that are all on the men's side, a guy from Grand Rapids, a guy from Canton area, and a guy from Rochester that are going to be doing some more marketing support for the U.S. chapter. We have a Facebook page with 700 some followers. We have a Twitter account with 600-700 some followers. We've started a YouTube channel, and we now are putting our episodes on there that Chris and John and I are doing. We're on the Apple iTunes podcast. We're on the Google podcast store. We really want to start making sure that we're driving people to the US Lacrosse website to join and become a member. We've got about 7,500 members in Michigan. I'd love to see that get to 10 grand over the next 2-3 years. But we do have a MichiganLacrosse.org website that we're in the process of redoing right now, that we'd like to make sure that these tools that we get followers, we get subscribers, we get people to interact with them, so that if you do have something like that, where we know that we have this clinic, I can put it on our Facebook page and put, some budget behind it and say, promote this ad to anybody that likes lacrosse in the state of Michigan, and let's see if we can get this in front of 5,000 sets of eyeballs and get the news out there.
Mm-hmm.
I can send anything I want within reason to Baltimore and say, please send an email blast to everybody letting them know that we have this event, this resource, scholarship available, open. Now that I've got a committee of guys where I'm not going to have to write these emails and do it, I want to make sure that the next time that you have one of these events, get it to me. I'll get it to them, and we can get an email out to 7,500 people, and hopefully then the word of mouth starts spreading where, hey, are you interested in going to that coach's clinic? I didn't know about it. Well, you didn't get the email from Michigan Lacrosse? Not a member. Well, here's a reason why. Again, I'm a volunteer. I don't get paid to do this, but this is my passion, and this is where I want to give, an opportunity for the communication to get a lot more consistent. And it seems like a lot of the communication and conversations I've had with people, there isn't even really a beef or a squabble or anything. It's just, that's what I heard. Oh, well, that's not what happened. Oh, well then, okay, cool. How can I help? It's been so much of just a miscommunication or the rumor mill rather than anything else.
It hasn't, prior to you, it hasn't, at least on the women's side, it hasn't been a strong chapter, and it hasn't been an organized chapter. And that's very different than the way it is in some other parts of the country. So, if we can help that, consider Rockford as a supporter of that.
So I was on the call today with somebody from Baltimore, and he is kind of in charge of the sales and chapter stuff. There were 65 some chapters nationally 2 years ago. They're down to 23 chapters nationally now. So as good or bad as Michigan has been in the past, we're one of a third that weren't just flat out shut down, charters pulled, money brought back in. Or I was finding out that a lot of times the board members for the chapter were also the board members for the local league, and they were funneling the money back and forth between themselves and their own league. And, for as much as we have not been perfect in Michigan, I go back to the guys that first started this Michigan Lacrosse Foundation, the Bob Stevensons, the Clark Bells, the Ron Heberts of the world that really got this thing up and running. Now I really want to try to be the guy that embraces our friends in the Midwest like Bryce and our friends in Baltimore that can give us the support and the resources as we know the people in the game. And like I said, I've got a 4.5-year-old and a 10-year-old little girl that have sticks that are going to start playing. I'm going to have to learn your guys' game.
They better have sticks.
Trust me, my kids
Most
have
people are
sticks.
looking for an apartment in Rockford.
What's that?
Yeah.
For Abby to go to school there.
Yeah, Coach, I've been looking at that. I've got an 8th grade daughter going to Mercy next year, as Chris mentioned, but I've been looking at that at the North Carolina satellite camp for a couple of years, because it's only older, because I think maybe like in 6th grade I was like, oh man, I want to get up and do that.
Yeah, we're looking at trying to drop it to a younger age, but
yeah.
If somebody's got skills, we try to throw them in there anyway.
I'll be up there, Coach.
Yeah, it's a
for
great. Yeah, we're working on our dates right now for that. So.
Okay, good. One thing, because I know we're bumping up against it, and this one I got to get out here. So this one's important for Coach, because I think this is the crux of really, the women's game, the girls' game in Michigan, is that, I mean, there is a drastic distinction in the level of play as you look at Rockford and EGR. Really compared to the east side of the state. And I guess my question to you is, as I've seen it, and Marion's got some good players and some good teams in recent.
Yeah, and Sherry's a great coach. So.
Yeah, but for the most part, I mean, the domination of the programs on that side of the state. What would you attribute that to? I mean, can you kind of speak to that? Because I think it's really fascinating to me.
Some of that goes back to the things that we've already talked about culture and what we do and how we do what we do. Although Jen and I have had some of those discussions too, because she says you get kids to come to programs. And so we have a very fully developed off-season program for our kids too. So, you know, we start sometime between October 1 and November 1 for our spring season.
Yeah.
And we played every year and into June that since I've been coaching, because the years that we didn't win the championship, we got beat by Jen in the semifinals and she won her championship. So we played into June for the last 13 years. And so that's a short off season for those kids, because a week after we're done, they're playing travel ball, and then they go back and they come back, they're in school, and a month after they're in school, we're starting with lacrosse again, unless they're in another sport.
Right.
And if they're in another sport, we're going to support that. But we're doing a couple of sessions a week that are speed and agility. We're doing a stick night. And again, there we have limitations from the MHSA to only have 4 that we can coach at a time. So we get creative with that so that we're not breaking those rules. And so we're going 3-4 days a week. Plus we work with 6x6 goalies for our goalies. He's been working with us for 6 or 7 years now. So we do some specific things in the off season to really develop goalies. That's a big problem in Michigan and high school with girls and
the youth.
Probably other places too.
Yeah,
but
youth
so
too.
we're doing all of those things all the time, but we get tremendous attendance. I mean, we would have 25, 30, 35 girls at these sessions. And that's not the other stuff that we're doing. Plus we're running clinics for the young kids. So we'll do Saturday mornings. We try to do some free. We try to do some as low cost if they're going to charge us for the gyms. And so our upper kids are teaching the young kids wherever we can grab a gym. Part of it is we have facilities so we can get space. We're in the weight room once a week, other than the other stuff that we're doing. And we're pretty privileged with the weight room that we have at Rockford, because it rivals. There's probably a couple of major universities that have a better weight room than we do.
Yeah.
But other than that, our weight room's pretty much a gift to the community there, and we make use of that. Our strength and conditioning guide to school says we use it more than any other program other than football.
Wow.
So we're in there doing that, and Mike has modeled a lot of what we do for his guys program, but we get the buy-in.
Right.
And we get the buy-in at the parent level. We get
Parents,
the buy-in at the kid
it's
level.
The culture. It's the culture, like you said.
And so it's an expectation. We set really, really high expectations for the kids, but we give them some really wonderful memories and experiences. And we're doing stuff, whether we're buying them ice cream, where we get a couple years ago, we got a snowed out day. And we had a game, and we had a bus. I asked the AD, can I still have the bus? He says, yep. So we went to a trampoline park for 2 hours.
That's cool.
And we're just doing stuff like that.
It's a culture. Yeah, I mean,
constantly.
You built the culture, and the success is a tribute to everything that you guys have done up there. So, congratulations, and it's a tribute to you guys for doing it up there for sure, Coach. And thanks for coming on too, because I know we're bumping up again.
Well, thanks, guys. This has been fun. I didn't know what to expect other than that
we don't either.
Lacrosse, so.
We make up everyone needs to go.
One final question off lacrosse. First off, I do want to make one statement. I think this would be one of the most valuable, I don't care, boys, girls, for high school coaches to watch. I think culture leads, winning follows. I think that was success follows, winning, whatever you want to say, follows. So, Coach, great job. I would hope that other people would emulate what you're doing. Maybe not the crafts and the lip syncing, but what you're doing structurally, I think, is pretty awesome. Yeah. So congrats on that. So I'm up in Rockford looking at a couple kids all the time, right, on the guys' side. And, I'm a big Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. And I'm always looking to see if Anthony Kiedis is around. Have you ever seen him?
Yes, I have.
Really?
At MVP in Rockford, and his dad. Yeah.
Yeah, Blackie. You've seen Blackie there too. What's MVP?
MVP is where we actually do our strength and conditioning. It's a gym. It's basically a chain of gyms there. They're owned by the Amway folks, they started them down in Orlando as an offshoot of the Magic, and then they bought a bunch of gyms up here. And
Cool.
actually, my daughter works for them too as a manager, but not in Rockford. But yeah, they sneak him in there when he's in town.
That's cool.
Okay, so I'm recruiting what time of year? Because I'm a recruit and I'm going to MVP now.
Yeah. Usually this time of year, and who knows now? They're not on tour, right? So he's probably quarantined in California or somewhere.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, a couple things. I'm going to share my screen, Mike, before we get out of here. You mentioned 6x6 Goalie Academy, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my good friend, Brad Gigliotti. If you're going to give Giggs a shout out, I'll share his website. He is a phenomenal goalie coach. He's a great guy, and his right-hand man is Danny Kransberger, who used to play at Detroit Mercy for Chris Kolon. These two guys are probably two of my favorite goalies in the world, but Connor Flynn still ranks above them, another Rockford kid. As far as we go to
Cranny's actually a good friend of my son-in-law and my daughter too. So
cool. Yeah, he's a good dude.
He's a great dude. There's so many good kids that come out of there. As far as your girls and program, tell them to please follow us on Twitter. It's USL_Michigan on Twitter. Like I said, we're on the Google Podcasts as US Lacrosse Michigan. We're on the Apple Podcasts. We have our YouTube channel. As soon as we're done with this, it takes me a couple hours to download everything and convert it over and get it done. But it'll probably be up there sometime on Saturday. We'll tag you on social media and all that stuff. Share it. And then anyone that's not a member of US Lacrosse Michigan or US Lacrosse, please go join. We need more members. There's a lot of benefit we get out of it. And I will take it up with you offline to have more conversations. And if there's people you think that need to be part of the conversation, events you're having, bring them to me, and I'll make sure we get them over to Baltimore, and we'll get the word out.
That'd be awesome. And shoot me an email, send me some of those links so we'll get our social medias for our team hooked up with all that stuff, and that'll draw some other folks in too that maybe aren't connected yet. So
awesome.
And Coach, I'll reach out to you as well because, like I said, I've been wanting to bring my daughter up to that North Carolina camp for a number of years. So she's I'm telling you, hey, I like orange. I mean, orange is my favorite color. So
awesome, Coach. Thank you very much. I want to say, on behalf of Chris and John, thank you for being on with us, and see ya. So.